For years, the true story of Spire has been completely shattered. It was hidden away in cryptic relic descriptions, vague event texts, and, the occasional ARG. But with the arrival of Spire 2 and its brand new epochs, the puzzle pieces have finally been given to us. I've spent the last several days agonizing over this timeline, tearing apart all the lore entries, matching up Spire 1 events with Spire 2 history, hell, even data mining the entire game in order to scavenge all the little lore bits that I possibly could give to you. And I'm happy to report that I finally cooked up the 100% canonical chronological timeline of the Spire. Now, putting this massive puzzle together has taken me an insane amount of work, so if you appreciate the effort and want to see more deep dives like this or more reports on the lore that we will keep getting along the updates, please take a second to like, subscribe, and leave a comment for the algorithm. Oh, and I'll have this icon at the bottom right if what I'm saying is not confirmed. Enjoy! Time is what happens in chronological order. To truly understand the endless ascensions, the cards we play, and the heart that beats at the center of it all, we have to go back to the beginning. Long before the Spire pierced the clouds, there was a planet named Prion, a mere speck in the universe. It churned about and it molded itself into that which tells stories. In its earliest era, beasts of imagination began to dot this world. They roamed the lands in a time of simple, gleeful violence. There were countless ways to kill, to feed, and to proliferate. Colonies of jawworms, hives of parasitic louses, and schools of unimaginable horrors ebbed and flowed into the nooks and crannies of Prion. But true chaos cannot sustain itself. The Architect, a being of cosmic magnitude, looked upon Prion and realized that things were no longer simple and fun. The creatures didn't make sense. The monsters didn't follow logic. Prion needed an entity capable of creation, destruction, and most importantly, control. Simultaneously, in the distant, choking foglands of Prion, mortal creatures were taking survival into their own hands. Ghastly nightmares of tormented souls stalked the earth. A huntress, part of an ancient sisterhood, took it upon herself to hunt one of these hunters, a terrifying, intangible wrath, known as the Nemesis. Armed with poison-coated blades, she hunted the beast down. Once her hunt was complete, the Nemesis' skull was ceremoniously placed upon her by her sisters. Her ritual had concluded, but her hunger for trophies had only just begun. And so birthed the legend of the Silent. When the Architect looked upon the senseless violence of Prion, he set to work. He was enamored by the steady, logical growth of flora and fauna, and he spent decades researching and refining life itself. His goal was to create perfection. The culmination of decades of research became his penultimate creation, the Ancient Seeds. The Architect was meticulous, operating with godlike precision. The seeds that were deemed failures, labeled simply as the mistakes, were locked away in a heavy coffer and hurled into the dark depths of the ocean. But the successful seeds were planted, and they grew into the ancient trees. These were no ordinary trees. Each was shaped by its surroundings. Some were stout and bushy, others gnarled and knotted. And as they reached their magnificent full maturity, a manifestation of pure cosmic power was born from within each of them. These beings were the Ancients, siblings of godlike stature and terrifying will. They were meant to be the keepers of Prion, reigning alongside the Architect in perfect harmony. But where there's a mind, there's ego, and where there's free will, there's jealousy. Among these godlike siblings was an ancient named Niao. While the architect possessed an awe-inspiring absolute will, Niao grew resentful. She was deeply jealous of his power. Consuming herself with this envy, she confided in a like-minded sibling. Together, these traitors committed the ultimate treason. They brewed the most potent, dark concoction Prion had ever seen. They called it the Blight. Niao excitedly presented the architect with a tea full of blight.
"This will help you sleep,"
she affirmed, but in fact, it didn't. The blight instantly took hold of the now comatose architect. The poison amplified, forming a horrific symbiotic relationship with Niao's own ancient tree. Realizing her apocalyptic crime, the other ancients captured Niao, imprisoned her within her own corrupted tree, and fled into hiding to take shelter from the now unstoppable blight. Mortal wars raged on the surface. For centuries, the Ironclads fought fiercely against the Valley Guard. The war was a brutal stalemate until a young Ironclad, driven by pure ambition, ventured to a forbidden boundary and bargained with the first demon, Baku. He traded his soul for the power to put an end to the endless war. The consequences of the young dreamer were unleashed. The Ironclad's strength surged to godlike heights. Demonic flames coursed through his blood, healing his cuts rapidly. He cleaved the Valley Guard in two. He burnt the Desert Tribe to a crisp, and he smashed the Windwalkers to the ground. But consumed by the terrifying high of his exciting new flames, he lost his mind. Blinded by bloodlust, he showed absolutely no mercy, turning the demonic fire on a familiar horde of aggressive, bronze-cladded warriors. He slaughtered all of his own people. The Ironclad became the last of his kind. The blight had completely poisoned the earth, its roots no longer able to draw nourishment from Prion. Niao's ancient tree withered and died, its lush foliage surrendered to eternity, its bark petrifying into cold stone. This last tree was no tree at all. It was given a name, the Spire, and trapped at the very bottom, in the dark, was Niao. But Nia was the Ancient of Resurrection. Imprisoned in a cage of her own making, she refused to simply rot. She needed to destroy the corrupt heart of her tree to break her prison, and to do that, she needed pawns. Into this dead tree walked the first champions. The Ironclad, driven purely by instinct and his accursed blood, entered the Spire having lost all reason and identity. Wielding his heavy blade, one thing was clear: all who prevented his ascent would perish. He was joined by the Silent. Fantastic Forsaken trophies occupied this blighted place, and the Huntress was inside, taking down the twisted wildlife one by one. Relying on deadly poisons and shifts, those marked by the Silent always fall. But a third wanderer found its way into the dark. The Defect, an ancient automaton originally built to work at a factory, had become inexplicably self-aware, drawn to the Spire's dark depths. But the Spire was unforgiving. The Ironclad was overwhelmed by a horde of slimes. The Silent was crushed by a raging group of cultists, and the Defect was dismantled by automated sentries. They bled out on the cold stone floors. They died. And then they woke up. Niao brought them back. This was the true horror of the Spire. Every time the Ironclad fell, every time the Silent's heart stopped beating, and every time the Defect's score shut down, The Mother of Resurrection pulled their souls and circuits back to the bottom of the tower. To ensure her pawns didn't fall into despair, got scared, or realized the futility of their quest and tried to flee. Now utilized a terrifying magic. She wiped their memories. With every resurrection, she cleansed her minds clean of their past failures, their agonizing deaths, and the paths they had taken. She would offer them a relic, an improvement, a momentary boon, before sending them back into the meat grinder. They became the perfect pawns. The Ironclad forgot the slaughter of his people, remembering only his demonic pact. The Silent forgot her countless deaths, remembering only the thrill of the hunt. The Defect's mechanical memory was reformatted, leaving only its self-awareness and its programmed attacks. They threw themselves at the Spire countless times, caught in an endless loop of blood, death, and rebirth. Desperate times call for desperate measures, and desperate measures cost gold. Spend your gold to acquire a morsel of food, the sharpest of daggers, or a fashionable hat. Buy something. Approach any blue-clothed merchant in a green rug and you'll be treated to a fantastic shopping experience. We don't turn away anybody. Really, anybody. Disclaimer. This video spot was paid for and sponsored by the merchant. We are not responsible for any cursed items acquired during the merchant's fantastic shopping experience. Thank you for your understanding. The Ascenders pushed through to the absolute top. Here was the corrupt heart, the blighted core of Neos 3. In the history books it is said, the Spire was slain. But by who? The timeline reveals itself to those with a keen eye. First arrived the Silent. Moving through the shadows, she unleashed her alchemical mastery, freezing the putrid heart in place with a specially made poison. Believing her hunt had concluded, she carved the pulsating piece of the grotesque flesh out of the heart as her ultimate trophy. She rappelled upwards and outwards, longing to bathe in the moonlight. But poison only put the organ to sleep. Next arrived a malfunctioning automaton, the Defect, an ancient combat construct. It found the weakened heart and punctured it with a magnificently charged laser beam. The hyperbeam explosion was massive. The Defect sustained critical damage from the blast, its core sparking and broken. Its mission seemingly accomplished, the dying machine relocated itself to the Spire's scrapyard for re-evaluation. Finally, the Ironclad arrived. He found the heart vulnerable, and with his full blood-crazed might, he struck it. The sacred demon's contract within his blood violently activated, hungrily absorbing the heart's remaining blight onto itself. The warrior and the blight were immediately set ablaze, consuming the blight in the process. The heart was dead. The demon had usurped the spire. A never-ceasing violet flame erupted atop the tower, painting the neighboring clouds a demonic purple and signifying his reign. But the Spire didn't just attract warriors. It had attracted the gaze of the cosmos. Sometime in between the arrival of the three Ascenders and the slaying of the heart came a fourth Ascender. Far, far away, an organization of ascetic monks observed the universe. Their sacred mission was simple: watch, remember, live. Recently, they had dispatched one of their peers to evaluate a spire of unknown origin on the planet Prion. But that peer has stopped reporting back. To find out why, they sent their finest ascetic, the Watcher. Devoid of emotion, unfazed by the bloody, primitive creatures fighting on the roadside, she entered the Spire to uncover the fate of her colleague. But the Spire is a place of corruption. The blight twists everything it touches. The Watcher's spear had not simply died. They had been consumed by the Spire's dark magic, transforming into a horrifying, slug-like abomination obsessed with the flow of time. They had become the Time Eater. This infernal creature prowled the upper reaches of the Spire, hunting down anyone who dared seek truth. When the Watcher finally reached the upper limits of the Spire, she found the creature waiting for her. The Time Eater recognized its former colleague and stated that he never really did like her. So a brutal battle ensued, but despite her mastery of divine stances, the Watcher was bested. The Time Eater sealed her fate. Her colleague killed her. Her mission ended in failure.
So this is how it ends. After all this time, all this research, for naught, all at the slimy hands of some infernal creature. I can hear it still, the sounds of its clock counting down to my demise. How fitting that the place I should crawl away to is a veritable graveyard. I wonder if this one is able to hear me even now. It's such a shame I never got to discover the meaning of this place. At least I discovered how. Ah, do you hear it too?
But she did not get revived, for Niao's quest to slay the Spire was already complete. She was left alone to be forgotten, her corpse rotting in some corner of the now dead Spire. With the heart destroyed, the calm arrived. The blight stopped consuming the earth, the dry, brittle ground began to moisten, rain doused the lands, and sunlight pierced the clouds. But inside the Spire, a devastating ecological collapse was taking place. Without the blight, the bug population started surging without a control. The bird cultists, fanatics who once wore pristine blue robes, performed clean rituals and worshipped the crow god Mathalis, were now facing starvation. Humiliated by their constant defeats at the hands of the Ascenders, their temples desecrated and their gods silent, they fled the city. They escaped to the lower, flooded rungs of the Spire, known as the Underdogs. Once a source of clean water for all the Spire, it had fallen into disrepair. Aggressive sea creatures had emerged from its depths, making a home in the maze-like passages. Here, among the monsters, the cultists scraped by on seaweed and fish, their immaculate robes turning into mossy, rotting rags. Outside the Spire, however, a golden age began. Societies and cultures from around the world made pilgrimages to the tower, recognizing it as the greatest trading hub of the world. Slowly, a burgeoning, massive metropolis formed at the base. They called it the capital. Deep within the Spire's scrapyard, sitting near the bones of a dead researcher, the broken defect pondered its fate. It was here it met another surviving construct who simply popped out and said, "Hello, my name is Flaw." Inside the Spire, Defect and Flaw left the sad scrapyard and ascended to the middle floors, instantly met with a massive bug infestation. The pair got to work, attempting to reduce the bugs to a reasonable level in an attempt to give their lives purpose. They confronted a toxic wasp colony residing in a triangular nest. The Defect emptied its energy reserves, tearing the Exapolis open, while Flaw fired salvos of lasers to keep the wasps at bay. But it wasn't enough. The swarm overwhelmed them, completely destroying the machines. Meanwhile, far away from the Spire, the Silent had returned to her fogland home. She presented the ugly, pulsating scrap of the heart, expecting glory. Instead, the other sisters judged her in silence. They had not seen her in over 3 centuries, and she returned with what looked like mere scrap? The Silent thought about all the brutal trials she had endured for this trophy, but she didn't defend herself. To speak is weak. She simply realized that one can only prove herself with more impressive trophies. There's always bigger prey. But before she could embark on her next hunt, the Silent noticed she had fallen violently ill. A sickness carrying a familiar scent coursed through her veins. The heart piece she took as a trophy was killing her. She hurled the flesh into the ocean, but the blight had no cure. She was going to die soon. And at the very top of the spire, the sky shifted. The never-ceasing violet flame that had burned proudly in the clouds suddenly went out. The architect had finally woken up. The sleeping god reclaimed his throne. Finding the demon ruling his domain, the architect struck with terrifying power, snuffling out the demonic flame and slicing the demon's face clearly in half. Furious at the state of this world, the architect summoned a violent storm. The clouds thundered and the newly formed capital trembled beneath rain so violent that nobody dare leave their house. 12 days later, the rain stopped. The spire opened its doors once more, and the ancients emerged from hiding, heading back to the spire to bestow their blessings. Deep at the bottom of the spire, Niao, the Mother of Resurrection, awakened from her slumber. Her original goal was to destroy the blighted heart, but now, the architect, the very reason for her imprisonment, was awake and sitting on the throne. Her desire for vengeance was reignited. She needed new pawns. And so began the second era of the endless loop. Just as she had done with the ironclad, silent defect and watcher, Niao prepared to pull the souls of whoever stumbled upon her in the newly opened spire into her trap. She would wipe their memories, scrub their minds of their agonizing deaths, and force them to climb again. She now had new pawns. The dying Silent, hearing news of the spire's reopening, ferried the boat directly to the capital for one final hunt to redeem herself in front of her sisters. At the bottom of the tower, Defect recomposed himself just enough to move around, grabbing pieces from anywhere around him. Using her magic, Niao gave him a blessing, but the Defect's core was completely broken. Realizing she could not wipe its memory, the Mother of Resurrection spoke to him, told him that his creator had abandoned him, and that he waited at the top of the tower. Outside, the capital gathered the most brilliant and courageous minds in an expedition known as the 12 to enter the newly opened Spire. Not a single one made it back. The official incident report for their futility read, Date 2771. Accidentally entered a conflict between a boulder-throwing individual and flying automatons. Jack the Fergroots, the fighter, crushed by a boulder. Joe Spaxo fell in a hole. Big Ed, the bard, shot by a construct. Garbo Dubby, the healer, touched grass. And Temi Mondus, the arcanist, whereabouts unknown. Once more, the Spire was ruthless. Part of this expedition, a man named Jovan and his wife fell madly in love inside the walls, welcoming a child into their lives. They made a fantastic discovery, a benevolent giant, an ancient, who agreed to guide them to the top to meet his brother, the architect, hoping to ask him to stop the deadly monsters pouring outside from the spire. But when they reached the top, they met a god devoid of any mercy. Interlopers aren't welcome, the architect said, and he annihilated them all. The giant was killed and the parents were murdered. Only a little girl made it out alive. Fleeing into the depths of the Spire, her heart was entirely consumed by vengeance. The orphan girl unlatched the forbidden grimoire. Weightless, dark smoke overwhelmed her as her skin, hair, and organs rapidly rotted away. Her soul was forcefully bonded to her locket. The grimoire whispered, "If I die, you die." She became the Necrobinder. And far away from Prion, an arrogant alien known as the Regent complained to his fellow Starians, proclaiming himself heir to the sun. He found his immortal, peaceful, fashionable home planet incredibly boring. Slamming his fists on his space console, he demanded excitement. The console beeped. An anomalous planet was detected. On his travels, the Regent tried to build friends. They were sturdy and capable of following instructions, but they were terrible at chess. They were swiftly demoted from friend to minion, and the Regent grew tired. From the stars, the Regent finally arrived, shattering his spaceship beyond repair as he crashed into Prion, declaring himself the hero the planet needed. Deadly monsters began trickling out of the Spire's open doors at an alarming pace. Brave warriors and mercenaries were sent in, but they were slaughtered. Learning of the dismay, the arrogant Regent took it upon himself to become the hero that Prion needed. Utterly confident in his cosmic superiority, he declared, "I enter," and marched into the Spire. But the Regent experienced a harsh reality check. He had marched into the Spire expecting a glorious, easy conquest, but instead, the Regent of Staris, a being who had never known hardship on his utopian immortal planet, was brutally slaughtered by the Spire's monsters. He died. And instantly his soul was pulled down to the dark abyss. Niao resurrected him. The Regent awoke at the bottom of the Spire, his ego shattered but his arrogance completely intact. Defeat? Me? The Regent of Staris does not know defeat. Refusing to accept that he was just another pawn in Niao's great plan, he decided that the strange man at the top of this tower must be defeated by him and only him. The Regent devised a royally brilliant plan to become stronger. He would learn, he would adapt, and he would climb again. To immortalize this revelation, the Regent approached a nearby stone and etched his new grand strategy into it for all to see. Try harder. The true battle lines were finally drawn. Sensing the growing threat, the architect began exercising his mastery of form and space, physically shifting the very nature of the Spire once a day in the hopes of disorienting all those who wanted to harm him. Elsewhere, the Regent met Tanks, a ferocious ancient. Taken with the Regent's mighty confidence, Tanks hurled a strange scepter at him, claiming this would let him fight on even ground with the architect himself. The silent, slowly dying of blight was approached by Teskatara, a massive ancient residing in a pumpkin field. "Hello, little one, grow big and strong," she whispered tenderly, offering her a bowl of nutritious soup. The defect entered a disorderly chamber overflowing with junk. Darf, the ancient hoarder riding a reptile, looked at the broken machine and claimed that he had something for it. And in his smashed chambers, the faceless demon threw a massive fit.
Look at what he's done to my face.
The demon raged, channeling all his remaining power, and he reached out to the Ironclad.
My death puppet, brandish my power. Kill the architect.
And finally, the cycle of violence peaked. The Necrobinder faced off against the Architect, demanding the restoration of the giant, of her parents, and of her humanity. Annihilated again and again, she eventually discovered Pale, a massive dragon giving off the exact same gentle presence as the murdered giant she once held dear. Pale looked down at the grieving undead girl and said, "This will help you get his attention." The boons have been granted. The demon's puppet, the poisoned huntress, the tricked automaton, the arrogant regent, and the vengeful necrobinder all ascend. The architect waits at the top of the world. Well, that's all for now as far as the lore goes and the timeline, but don't go yet. There's still a few details to talk about lore-wise. We don't really know what most of the objects given to Ascenders are or do. Presumably they will allow us into Act 4 to fight the Architect, but I'm sure that we will continue getting more and more lore as we get closer to the full release of Slay the Spire 2. And I will update you on these lore drops, so stay tuned and subscribe if you want to be the first one to know when anything happens. Like if you enjoyed, I mean, if you stick around this long, I think I deserve a like, you know? Shoot me a comment to boost me up in the algorithm, which is almost as ruthless as the Spire. And without making you wait any longer, here are the tiny little details and secrets that didn't quite fit in the timeline, but I feel you should still know. I kept the main video's narrative strictly to the timeline for simplicity's sake, but there are a few data mined, loose ends, and stories that don't hold much narrative weight yet, or don't quite fit in the timeline that I still want to share, so this is a space for that. There's also some theories from the Discord server, or my personal theories, that I will just showcase. First theory is that the kin are cultists that moved to the lower levels due to the bug infestation, and now they hold new aspects, and this theory's main point is that they hold similar dual-wield weapons and are similarly almost cult-like, with their speech seeming like a twist on Kaka. And some extra proof of this is on the event of the Truth Tablet. And this event tells us that, you know, this scroll, it belongs to the kin and it has the truth in it. And it spews out air as the final word after we give our entire body to it. So yeah, I'm sure you can see how it's related, well, air, birds and such. You know, it's possible. I don't personally believe this theory, but hey, it's out there. Next is something found by Slay the Spire Discord user Majora. Shout out to them for finding this after they scavenged through the patch notes of the old playtest on Slay the Spire 2, which are still in the game and readable. They found a removed relic called Soup Recipe, which obviously it parallels to the ancient Teskatara, giving her the soup as the boon and also giving food-related boons to the player in game. Here's the image of it. Yep, it just looks like a soup recipe. I managed to find it by myself by data mining a little bit. Next theory, we see Flaw's dead corpse in the event Infested Automaton with the description, "There's a chamber filled with dead robots. Salon Automaton still has faintly glowing core, but it's engulfed by a grotesque organic growth and doesn't respond." Now, it isn't 100% confirmed, although the designs are exact. It could be that the model is exactly the same as Flaw's model, but you know, since Flaw and Defect are different, I think the designs vary somewhat, so I'd say it's not 100% confirmed, but pretty likely. Next theory, Osti is the giant's hand. Well, for this one it's really just a theory. The hand is big, maybe giant-sized. The ancients do say at some point that the architect will not be happy seeing the hand, you know, the architect who killed the giant, so there is a chance it's not confirmed. I personally don't know if I believe it or not yet, but I'll let you know if there's more proof. Now, this isn't a theory, more a cute little fun fact, but we can see the champion from Slay Spire 1 retired and having a tea party in the event The Round Tea Party. I'll show it on screen. I'm glad that he's happy and poisoning tea with his friends. If you find yourself making any crazy theories, I encourage you to discuss them in the Slay Spire 2 Lord channel in the official Discord server. I'm always lurking around there and will give you a response and maybe even feature you in a future video if I think the theory has any merit to it. Well, that's it for me. If you made it to the end, you are a real player and deserve a shoutout. So, huge thanks for sticking around. I also wanted to thank Dester, my amazing friend and the voice of Watcher on this video, Lacey for being my lore consultant for a little bit, and basically most of the Slay Spire 1 lore. And a huge shout out to Peter Lord, the creator of the Slay Spire 2 codex. If you need a wiki, I think it's like the perfect tool. You know, it even has the little dialogues from the ancients to the characters. It's genuinely great, and the link is in the description. The video would have been much, much harder to make without it. Anyways, subscribe, like, yada yada yada, leave a comment, all the YouTuber stuff. Thanks for watching.